Hello, it's Don Mitchell. I'm back to speak with you again about 2000% Living, the book that teaches you how to be 20 times more fruitful for accomplishing what God's good purposes are for your life. Today we'll be moving on to Lesson 4, which focuses on the idea of putting first things first. Let me begin, as usual, by quoting from the Bible, in this case, the book of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 33, in the New King James Version. But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added to you. Appropriate written goals only become valuable when you start turning those goals into reality. In other words, writing goals is a waste of time. Having written their goals, most people become concerned about how to achieve them. Their lives are already busy. How can they make room for spending a lot of time on their most important goals? When combined, 7 simple activities can help you to shift your time and attention in favor of your goals. And the 7 are: first, determine how you spend your time now. Second, determine when you are most productive. Third, notice when you are least productive. Fourth, eliminate harmful activities. Fifth, reduce activities with little value. Six, combine activities that work well together. And 7, reschedule your days to put first things first. In the rest of this lesson, I'll describe how to do each of these 7 activities so you'll gain the benefit. Let's look first at how to measure the way you spend your time now. Here I'll quote first from the book of Luke, chapter 6, verse 38. For with the same measure that you use, it will be measured back to you. Understanding how you spend your time can be the first step in a major life improvement program. Start by jotting down the time and what your new activity is whenever you start something different, and keep track in a diary 24 hours a day for at least 2 weeks. What time you wake up, what time you go to bed, what time you get out of bed, what time you brush your teeth, and so forth until you fall asleep at night. You'll have to estimate that time the next morning. If you have a paying job, it's important to separate commuting time from working time, as well as the various aspects of what you do during the day, such as preparing for meetings, attending different kinds of meetings, writing reports, reviewing materials, business telephone calls, traveling to other sites, etc. Here are some of the categories of activities you may find useful for recording your time in describing the workday sequence of activities for someone who is a parent of young children and has a job outside the home. Sleep, lay in bed after waking up, prayer, Bible study, personal hygiene, such as shower, brush teeth, brush and comb hair, and so forth, awaken other family members, help family members get ready for the day, prepare breakfast, eat breakfast, clean up after breakfast, take children to the bus stop or drive them to daycare or school, drop off cleaning, commute to work, prepare for business meetings, attend business meetings described by subjects such as sales, administration, human resources, etc. Process business paperwork, make business telephone calls, review business materials prepared by others, business travel, lunch, commute from work, pick up children, take children to activities and watch what they're doing, shop, help children with homework, prepare dinner, eat dinner, clean up after dinner, make personal telephone calls, watch television. Read for entertainment, prayer, Bible study, time alone with spouse, exercise, visit friends, home chores, hobbies, perform work brought home, personal hygiene, plan the next day's activities, inactive in bed at night but not asleep. Pick a period of time to measure that's typical of your entire year. You won't learn as much if you just measure what you do on vacation or when not very busy. While you're recording what you do, don't try to reform yourself. Just do what comes naturally. Once you've completed the daily diary entries, summarize the total length of time for each activity. This means you'll know how many hours you slept, how long you slept in bed awake, you spent in bed awake but otherwise inactive, your commuting hours, the time spent preparing meals, how much time shopping took, and so on. I find it helpful to look at such summaries translated into weekly averages. To do so, just simply divide the totals for each active category by the number of weeks you measured. If your Monday through Friday schedule is a lot different from your Saturday and Sunday schedule, You should prepare weekly subtotals for your Monday through Friday and Saturday and Sunday schedules, as well as the weekly averages. You may also find it helps you to understand better by seeing daily averages for these activities. To create daily averages, just divide the totals or subtotals by activity for the measurement period by the number of days involved. Before making any time allocation choices, you should first reflect on what the most and least productive aspects of that period of time are like. I discuss how to do that in the next two sections. Determine when you are most productive. Here I quote from the book of Luke, chapter 12, verse 16 in the NAS version. The land of the rich man was very productive. As the next activity, go over your diary entries to make note of those times and activities when you were most productive at whatever you were doing. I suggest you use a different color pen, marker, or printer ink to asterisk or highlight these occasions when a lot was accomplished. After you have noted the occasions, go back to each productive activity. Think about what happened then that contributed to your being highly productive. There are many potential factors that can contribute. Let me list a few of them for you to start your thinking. Time of day. Some people work best early in the morning, others late at night. Day of the week. Friday can be a more productive day at work because you have fewer interruptions while others seek to finish their work and start the weekend. How quiet it was. It's harder to do difficult tasks when noises distract you. Whether you had planned your work ahead of time. Whether you had any help. Who helped you? When you were clear about what the task was, when you were experienced at doing the task, when others showed their appreciation before or while you were doing the task, when you were at home, while you were at work, when certain people were asleep or away, when you were rested, when you were feeling energetic after exercising, while praying, while reading the Bible, while taking a shower, while brushing your teeth. As you think about these productive occasions and these times, locations, circumstances, and influences, consider where you might be able to lump several narrow factors together as a more general influence. In my case, a general influence is I'm most productive when I'm undisturbed, which includes the factors of no noise, not being interrupted, having enough time to complete a task, and the lack of any visual stimuli that attract my attention. As a result, I get a lot more done by ensuring I have long periods during which I can focus my undisturbed attention. A distraction-free hour might yield 4 times the results in writing articles or books, for example, of an hour punctuated by 4 telephone calls, even if the 4 are quite brief and uneventful. Summarize what you learned by identifying the factors and general influences that seemed to improve your performance the most. In doing so, it may be that some factors only help for certain kinds of work. Make note of that as well. Next, let's notice when you are least productive. Here I'm going to quote from the first book of 1 Corinthians, chapter 12, verse 15, again in the NAS version. If the foot says, because I am not a hand, I am not part of the body, it is not for this reason any less a part of the body. You can also learn a lot more by repeating the process that helps you locate when you were most productive, but this time you should look instead for those occasions when you were least productive. I recommend you use a third color, pen, marker, or printer ink to note these occasions. As with the productive occasions, notice what occasions and the associated times, locations, circumstances, and influences that were problems for you. Again, look for common factors and general influences that were present when you were less productive. To help you notice factors that harm productivity, I've listed some of the times, circumstances when I personally am least productive. Time of day. Right after a big lunch, early evening when I'm hungry, after midnight when I'm tired. Day of the week. Mondays are a mess for me because students have sent a week's worth of urgent requests for help that have piled up over the weekend. How noisy it was, such as when there is construction nearby. Whether the work was planned ahead of time. With no advanced planning, I can spin uselessly in circles for hours. Whether I had any help. I can't write an article very well with someone trying to help me at the same time. Who helped me? Some helpers can be worse than having no help. When I'm not clear about what the task was. To my chagrin, I've sometimes produced work that I thought was great, but that turned out not to be what was requested. I had to go back and start over again. When I was inexperienced in the task. Give me a new task involving lots of unaccustomed software, and I'll be very slow. When others show their disapproval, When people sneer at what I'm doing while I'm working, I may focus on feeling steamed rather than doing my work. When I was home, when my wife or children need me, I'm going to be easily distracted. When I was at work, if my boss is pacing around waiting for something I'm working on, that presence will slow me down. When others are present, there are a few people in my life who create mayhem just by being in the vicinity, while being continually interrupted. It takes me a long time to remember where I was in my thought process. When I was tired or ill, headaches and sleepiness combined slow me down to below a snail's pace. After exercising, if I exercise too much, so I become lightheaded, it takes me a long time to recover and to become productive again. Summarize what you learned by finding the general influences and individual factors that seem to reduce your performance the most. In doing so, it may be that some factors only affect certain kinds of work. Make note of that as well. Now we're going to talk about eliminating harmful activities. Here I'd like to quote from First Chronicles in the chapter 4, verse 10 in the NAS. Now Jabez called on the God of Israel, saying, "Oh, that you would bless me indeed and enlarge my border, and that your hand might be with me, and that you would keep me from harm, that I may not pain me." And God granted him what he requested. Everyone has made mistakes so harmful their negative consequences continue to be a problem for many years to come. Hopefully, no such occurrences happened while you were logging how you spent your time over 2 weeks. Chances are that you won't have any difficulty remembering what harmful activities you've done in the past. List even those harmful activities that you haven't done in many years. Let me give you an example of what I mean. One of my worst business moments was being awakened early one Monday morning by a telephone call from a colleague asking me why I wasn't in Phoenix, Arizona, to take my boss around to see our company's operations there. I was still in Boston. It was about a 6-hour plane flight to Phoenix, so I wasn't going to be able to fix this. I asked my colleague to take my boss around, hopped on the first plane, met my boss at the airport as we prepared to return home, and spent the flight back discussing what he had seen that day without me. He forgave me. Thank God he did. Otherwise, that mistake could have been a severe dent in my career. People have been fired for less. This trip occurred during the middle of a severe recession. To find another job then would have been quite difficult. Okay, now think about how you would avoid each of the mistakes if the situation arose again today. In my case, I'd forgotten to check my next week's schedule on Friday night. When a friend called that night to invite me to a party on Sunday, I accepted and went to the party instead of flying to Phoenix, which had totally slipped my mind. Since then, I've made it a practice to check my schedule every night for the next 7 days. I also don't accept any invitations without checking my schedule first. In addition, I make multiple notes to remind me of meetings or events that are critical for me to attend. I have also learned by considering harmful activities that I've seen others do and determined how to avoid making those mistakes. Let me share an example. At a number of weddings, a father of either the bride or the groom became so tipsy that it was a problem. I've also heard many awful stories about terrible actions taken at weddings by drunken fathers of the bride or groom. As a result, I made it a point not to drink anything alcoholic at any of my children's weddings, rehearsals, or related events. If you have trouble remembering the lessons for how to avoid such harmful actions, make a list of new habits to follow daily and review it each morning. You may only avoid one big harmful action a year, but one such avoidance can free up hundreds of hours, but otherwise be devoted to dealing with the consequences. So now let's shift our focus to reducing activities that have little value. Here I'd like to quote from 2 Samuel chapter 18, verse 14. Then Joab said, "I will not waste time here with you." If you're like most people, your time log reveals vast wastelands of time spent with little or no value added towards your goals. When my clients and students share their time logs with me, I expect that there will be approximately 30 hours of no or low value activities per week. Think about that. It's almost as much as a full work week. Over a decade, it's more than 15,000 hours. Cutting back on such no and low value activities becomes a prime opportunity to gain more time to work on your goals. I also recommend you consider how much time you spent on your goals during the measurement period. I've seen results as low as less than an hour a week. I rarely see numbers higher than 3 hours a week. Now you can begin to see why I encourage you to spend 20 times more of your work week on your goals than you do now. What are the times, places, and occasions where you're involved in low or no value activities relative to your goals? I can anticipate what your list will look like, but I can share with you what many of my clients and students have decided to cut back on. Television watching. Unless you're a professional television critic, most of this viewing has nothing to do with your goals. Commuting. Unless you're listening to recorded materials related to your goals, this is often dead time for helping you to meet your goals. Attending meetings you don't need to be in. This is why so many people text away on their personal electronic devices during meetings. Attending meetings that go on longer than necessary. Extensive exercising. Unless you're listening to recorded materials, reading information related to your goals or a priority goal is improving your health or fitness. Spending more than 9 hours a day in bed, either lounging or sleeping combined. Reading what's unconnected to goals. Most people keep their Bible reading time. Business travel, unless you bring goal-related activities to do while traveling. Doing tasks that your spouse or children could perform and would be happy to do, and making a fair allocation of home-related tasks. Chatting for hours with friends and family on the telephone, unless it's related to your goals. Handling paperwork that others in the organization could do for you. Preparing materials at work that others in the organization could do for you. Going to meetings other people could attend on your behalf. Hobbies that take lots of time that are unrelated to your goals. Business telephone calls. Some people take the long view and realize their current job and home location present serious problems for accomplishing their goals. As a result, some people look for a job that's more supportive of their goals and eliminates most commuting and business travel. A number of home-based businesses have been established in the process. My suggestion is that you not make too many changes at once unless they feel very comfortable and easy to you. You can obviously repeat the 7 activities described in this lesson as often as you want to redirect your time. As you can see from that list, many activities that are unrelated to goals can be made productive by simply adding in some helpful aspect, such as listening to recorded material or reading something that's related to your goals, so you don't have to give up exercising. Let's look at some opportunities to combine activities in the next section. And here I'd like to quote from Philippians chapter 2, verses 1 and 2. Therefore, if there's any consolation in Christ, if any comfort and love, if any fellowship of the Spirit, if any affection and mercy, fulfill my joy by being like-minded, having the same love, being of one accord, of one mind. As I suggested in the last section, sometimes you can take an activity that's not related to your goals and add a goal-related dimension. Most people have time now when they could do an additional activity, such as listening to recorded materials during commuting and business travel. If your employer allows you an hour for lunch, you might find that you could devote part of that hour to working on a goal rather than just eating and wandering around. Experts on time management normally encourage people to work on one thing at a time. Their studies suggest that those who are trying to perform 3 or 4 activities simultaneously, such as texting, looking at interesting billboards, and jotting notes on a clipboard while driving a truck, may have problems. Accidents increase among drivers who text, for instance, and take longer to do the tasks than people who perform them one at a time. Here's a better idea. I'm suggesting instead that you find activities that serve many different purposes related to your goals. Let me share an example of what I mean. Assume that parents have goals that make it desirable to spend more time with their children, to learn certain new computer skills, to become better leaders, and to practice humility. Rather than work on those desirable activities separately, the parents might instead look for activities that will combine all those aspects. An example might be to learn new computer skills, if appropriate, with the children, and to apply those skills to solving problems that the children will deal with in school at some point, allowing time to be spent together, the children and parents to learn the skills, and leadership to be demonstrated by engaging in everyone's interest, and humility to be experienced by approaching the situation as a learner with the children rather than as a know-it-all parent. Such multiple benefit goal-related activities can add up to 10 hours a week in goal-related improvements for many people. For some people, the increased activity can be even larger. And thinking about some ways to combine purposes into one activity, be sure you don't isolate yourself from God, your family, and your friends. Instead, look for ways to involve them in more aspects of your life. You'll find that achieving your goals will be much more rewarding when you do. Next, I'd like to talk about rescheduling your days to put first things first. Here I want to quote from Proverbs, verse 3, chapter 3, verses 9 and 10. Honor the Lord with your possessions, and with the first fruits of all your increase. So your barns will be filled with plenty, and your vats will overflow with new wine. As I mentioned in lesson 1, the Bible promises that by tithing, giving the first 10% of your income to the Lord through his local church, you'll increase your spiritual and material wealth. See Malachi chapter 3, verses 8 through 12. Allocating your most productive time and circumstances to your most important goals for the Lord will similarly increase your effectiveness in reaching your goals. This is perhaps the most important part of the fourth lesson for you to appreciate. By simply giving your goals the best, most timely attention when you are highly productive, you can probably accelerate your progress to your goals by more than 20 times. When this benefit is joined with spending a lot more time on your goals, the combined momentum is irresistible. Making these changes requires courage and imagination. Courage is required to find ways to free up more of your most productive time for your goals. This may mean asking your boss if you can work on flex time so you can shorten your commute and use more precious early morning time for tasks best done then. Imagination is also involved in providing good reasons why this change in working hours is in your organization's best interest. Perhaps you can make or take some early calls to Europe before your children wake up. I recommend that you write down an ideal schedule for every day of the week, one that gives you as many hours as possible to work on achieving your goals while you will be highly productive. Consult with those who will be affected by any changes you might make to see how they feel about the shift and what suggestions they have for you. Once you have a schedule approved, I suggest you follow it as closely as possible. Some ideas for optimally allocating your schedule will work well, and yet others won't. Be flexible and learn from your new experiences. Keep in mind you want to accomplish more. Keep track of what's accomplished towards your goals each week in a journal. Go back at the end of the week and examine what you did to see how you could have accomplished more by making better use of your time. Many people, for instance, find that they need some weekend planning time in order to gain the best results towards their goals during the subsequent week. In making these changes, also consider how you might expand the amount of time during which you expect to be highly productive. If your workspace is very noisy, for instance, see if you can move to a quieter area. If that's not possible, find temporary workspaces you can use for times when you need plenty of quiet. By working the right activities at the best times and in the ideal environments, you'll accomplish a great deal more and with less effort. That's the kind of life that God wants you to lead. When you do, your ability to make a difference will expand in astonishing ways as God aids you with his infinite power. So I hope this lesson has been a great blessing to you, and I thank you for your kind attention watching it. And I look forward to talking to you soon as we go on to lesson 5. So God bless you and goodbye for now.